Hello, and greetings from beautiful Lake Hall on Valentine's Day Eve. So, by this point, you should have submitted your forms of writing project, or at least be very close to doing so. I think there's only one or two of you who haven't yet submitted it, so get it in. Otherwise, welcome to Unit 3, Scholarly Writing. So, this is where we really begin to depart from what we've already done. Maybe that's the wrong word. We might really say jumping in using it. What you're going to see from here on out, though, is that we're into the application and production stage of the semester rather than just researching and writing about the research. Consider this the point where we've taken stock of our inventory, we understand our audience expectations and guidelines and needs, and now we're going to begin meeting them. So this marks the beginning of a three module mini course almost on what amounts to audience. So over the next several weeks, a couple months really, we're going to be working to write to three distinct audiences. First, in Module 3, we're going to be writing for a scholarly reader. Now, what that means, think back to Pogner. Discourse communities exist to create knowledge about a discipline. They use scholarly writing as the medium to do this. The exchange of information via scholarly writing, via submission, peer review, and reading is how this happens. Discourse community members also frequently engage in conferences where we will write short papers, works that's still in progress to submit to other members of the discourse community. They'll be read aloud, and then there will be a short discussion period afterwards, Q&A, that type of thing. The idea is that it's a less formal venue than a peer-reviewed publication, and that it affords instant feedback on the development of a nascent idea. So that's going to be what we're getting into here in Unit 3, which is scholarly writing. So remember, the stakes, the payoff for Unit 3 is the creation of new knowledge. By studying topic X, we can better understand topic Y or approach Y. We can solve problem Z by doing something. You're going to offer a recommendation for future research. Future research should focus on this question blank in order to better understand topic Z. Something like that. Your payoff is about the production of knowledge through the continued study of a topic or a consideration of a question and exchange of ideas. That's what's at stake. Now, the assignment itself, I sent that out last week, so hopefully you've all had a chance to look it over by now. In the middle of that is what I call a guided reading. So what the guided reading is an opportunity for you to read an example piece, so to speak, and throughout it to say, okay, what does each sentence of this thing do? And that question here of what it does is really important because successful scholarly writing, to be honest, it's not so much about the content. It's not so much about the information. I mean, ultimately it is if you're a practitioner. But at this stage where you are still a novice being introduced to this field of study, we're looking at your mastery over the genre, which means essentially, can you mimic the moves that a professional piece would do? So in that sense, what's important is understanding how each component part works to build the whole, which is why I've included the guided reading in the assignment sheet. So it's really, really, really important that you pull that abstract apart and you take a look at how everything from active voice to precise verb choice to positioning the paper or myself, the writer, as the subject of the sentence, down to the order of the sentences, presents information and responds to a prompt. You'll notice the attention to the payoff, which is what a different take on literary history, and an interdisciplinary approach to a field that has not fully yet embraced it. So look at how each of those sentences within that paragraph works, and that's what you want to do. Follow that model. It's kind of like paint by numbers. You just adapt it to your own field. Which brings me to my next point, the connections to earlier work. This is really where you're going to continue using the sources from your annotated bibliography. So what you want to do here is when you find the CFP, whether that's a CFP for a journal issue or for a conference, I would suggest a conference paper. But if you find a journal one, that's fine too. You find a CFP and you respond to it by drawing on at least two of the sources from your annotated bibliography. You want to use those to synthesize information and make those claims that I mentioned a couple minutes ago. So that's kind of the objective here, is to put the pieces together into the whole. Now, obviously, you're not writing a full-length paper for this. The required length is 250 to 300 words. That's intentional. And if you look at the bottom of the assignment sheet, particularly the brevity and jargon section, that's what successful academic writing is marked by. It's marked by the concise presentation of dense ideas and carefully selected relevant information. That's what this sample abstract does, and it's what your scholarly abstract needs to do. So, first things first is finding the abstract that you are responding to. So that's your project for, I believe, Friday, is your analysis of a scholarly abstract. I apologize. So your analysis is due Friday at 11:59. So remember, you have to actually find an abstract here, and my email from last Friday offered you a couple of places you might look for those. What you really want to do here is go through the full article or chapter and see how the abstract is derived from it. Like, if we're going to distill the most important parts, what are those most important parts, and how do we make that decision as to what to include in an abstract and what not to include? Well, it comes back to what's the use value of an abstract. It's a scholarly genre, right? Think about research papers that you've written before, how many sources you have, how many tabs you have open in your browsers, how many notes you might have copied and pasted. It's a ton of data. So that selection becomes super, super important. But that also means that scholarly readers get used to reading certain types of information. So for instance, in abstracts, you'll find argument. This study finds, or this essay argues. So if it's like a quantitative study, you'll probably find statistical analysis and results in the abstract, as well as implications and stakes, which is, what does it mean? How does it benefit other researchers? What might be its value to a professional field even, depending on how you're looking at a topic. So that payoff, those stakes are going to be mentioned. Argument or findings are going to be mentioned. Methodology or procedures will probably be mentioned. Precise data may be mentioned if it's really relevant to the argument or the finding. But more than likely, that's going to be what's kind of reserved for the meat of the article. And it's going to look different depending on what your precise field is and which publication you choose and what the CFP is and what the abstract is. But regardless of what it is, it's really important that you get a handle on what's the CFP, what's the abstract, and then how are the parts kind of distilled from the whole. How is the abstract distilled from the larger piece? And what does that say about the discourse community? Because that's really important for figuring out what to include in your abstract. So for Friday, you have the analysis of the scholarly abstract to be done. And again, it's going to be a Blackboard discussion board post there. And you're going to be working with, I'm going to assign new partners for this unit, actually. So I'll get those out momentarily after I finish making this video. And then I'm going to ask you to respond to a partner post there. So do that, and from there, you know what? I take that back. That's not in the schedule. I misread that. So don't do that. Don't do that. Do not respond to a partner post for Friday. You don't have to do that at all. It was a shortened peer review letter to analyze the scholarly piece. My apologies. I misread that. So Friday, analysis of scholarly abstract. Tuesday, the 20th, is going to be the rough draft. Then you'll respond to that for next Thursday with the peer review. And then the whole thing is due, 13 days from today on Monday, the 26th. Over the next couple of weeks, starting probably next week, I'm pretty busy this week. Starting next week, once I have the forms of writing graded, I'm going to be contacting each of you to set up a G chat, a Google chat, I think it's what it's called, meeting, or a Google Hangout, same thing, sorry. An online meeting to discuss your project and your progress in the course and where you are. It'll only take about 5 or 10 minutes at most, and it's just a chance for me to actually see each of you face to face. So I'm probably going to create a Google Doc spreadsheet and let you sign up for an appointment time on there. I know that there are time differences for a lot of you, so if that's the case and what I set up just doesn't work, please be in touch with me and we'll work something out for both of us where we can get on the same page with that. But I do want to have a check-in with everybody just for a few minutes to say hi to and let you know where we are. Any questions, be in touch via email. I'm going to get on the next step of this by the end of the week. So have a good one. Good luck on the scholarly writing. I think you'll like it.